You're good.
All right, so we'll call this police department meeting to order at 5:10. Chief Fitch, you want to start it off?
Actually, if you don't
Or
mind,
Scott?
sir, we have very easy stuff to knock out first. Chief Barber wants to set up, a civil service test. He's
Mhm.
ran through his list, so he would like to do that, what do you say, 8 to 12 weeks?
Yeah, I think you guys just schedule it with the civil service, all we do is approve it.
Right, we would like it for the end of August.
You guys have to schedule that with
Civil service?
civil service.
Do they have their own meeting time, or what do we do there?
Just contact, who's Becky the
We can get with Becky, and then she'll get with, I
The
know
other
Angie
members?
Booth, and then the other two names, I'm just having I can't think of them right off the top of my head, but Angie's one of the main ones for that.
Okay, so do we not have to go through committee for?
Well, we just approve it, and I'll say, I'll vote yay on it for civil service test. Chief, you need to tag on that already?
Yes, I would actually, but I don't know the dates yet. I haven't went as far as Harry has to ascertain the dates of when their availability for the Civil Service Commission is. But one of the things I want to bring up tonight of a couple issues is potentially a promotional examination.
Okay.
And just scheduled for whenever in the fall.
Okay. I think you guys are shooting for the end of August, right?
Yes, at least 6 weeks out.
Too early for you?
A little too early for me.
Okay.
Ours is just interesting, because yours is obviously
Yeah.
a little bit higher, so.
So you got a week left, right, to hustle and do everything you need to do for 6 weeks out?
For the police exam?
No, for your exam.
Oh, mine? Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have any issues with that?
No.
There you go. Schedule it?
Sweet, thank you.
And Miss Barber didn't have anything for committee, so
Oh, yeah.
that's all
Fire
you.
department have anything else?
No, that's all we have for tonight.
Okay, so I passed out the two different issues that I have that I'd like to raise is, first of all, I wanted to try to break this down. Essentially, as you guys know, after the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, was put into place, I switched our shifts from 8 hours to 12-hour shifts. Multiple reasonings, but one of the reasons I think that you guys was certainly on board with it was because I assured you that it would be a cost-saving measure for the city and the police department. So in the first 6 months, it's kind of worked out nicely. If you see this first one, it says for the year 2021, MPD budgeted for approximately 46 hours of overtime per bi-week pay. Upon completion of the CBA, I made the switch to MPD officers to go from an 8-hour work schedule to a 12-hour workday schedule, the Panama schedule. The switch was made at the beginning of April, meaning that so far this year, we spent January, February, and March working the 8-hour schedule, and the April, May, and June months working the 12-hour schedule. Below is the comparisons. So we had a nice chance to do a 3-month comparison on one another. So the first 3 months of the year, January through March, MPD officers, and this is while we was on an 8-hour schedule, worked 466 hours of overtime. That cost the city approximately $12,800. May through June, once we went to the 12-hour schedule, we paid 153 hours of overtime. Well, I'm sorry, we paid 209 hours of overtime, but 76 of those hours was due to the unforeseen observation of Juneteenth that nobody had budgeted for, nobody knew of. So if we basically, even counting those additional 76 hours, we still only come up to 209 hours, well below half. Actually, we're not much more than a third, we're about 37%, and the cost of the city was $5,655. So that just kind of gives you a little idea what, I don't have any reason to believe that the projections won't carry on through. I know it's only a 3-month sample, which is relatively small, but I have no reason to believe that it, if anything, would improve. But that's just a little bit of that to kind of segue into the next thing. The thing that I would like to do is we've grown as a department and we've made some headway. So I would like to ultimately test from within the department a promotional examination. That doesn't mean we're not going to add anybody onto the department, although I'd be more than happy to add some people if you wanted me to. But from the officers, and can you share that when you're done? Thank you. If you guys can, what we want to do is, I would like to go ahead and from within the department, one of the 10 officers, including myself, promote from within them. I would set the standards, you know, for the promotional and the supervision. What I propose is on par with the rest of the United States law enforcement. I want to create a first-line supervisor. The other officers, a position would take on a first-line supervisor's responsibilities, such as checking reports, providing instruction, compliance with policies and procedures, and assist me with some additional administrative duties. The sergeant would still be a uniform position and work a normal shift and answer calls like other officers, but have the additional first-line responsibilities. With the additional responsibilities and liability comes the need for an additional pay. It's my opinion that a sergeant should make at least 10% above an officer's pay. This position would remain a collective bargaining unit position, so it would have to be defined and negotiated with the police union. However, it's my recommendation that the sergeant would have 3 steps to top out a pay. Step 1 would be approximately 6% above top officer's pay. Step 2 would be at the end of 1 year, that would be 8% above top officer's pay, and step 3 would be 10%. So it would take a couple years for the sergeant to step out, if you will, and ultimately that would be at the date, you know, begin the date of when they was officially promoted. So it'd ultimately be 10. Now, I gave you an example. If we had that officer that was just promoted today, right now, the highest step we've got is 2150. So if you would do, that would make, the 2028 is what the officers make. If we would do that at the 6%, it'd be 2150 with an increase of about $2,537 per year. The sergeant step 2 would be move it up to 2190. That increase would be about $3,369 a year. And when the sergeant was stepped out at step 3, he'd be making $22.30 an hour if this would have occurred several years ago, with an increase maxing out at $4,201.60. It's my opinion that a sergeant's position, because right now I'm the only one of any that holds any rank in the office, and I think it's definitely needed to have somebody here more often than what just me from a frontline supervision. It would definitely assist, I think, in helping maintain the policies and procedures are being adhered to even more than what they are. I don't see, obviously, you're not going to find another law enforcement agency in the country that doesn't have ranking officers. So under the Department of Justice standards, we're way below. They're recommending almost 40% of ranking officers, so that would be 4 out of 10. Obviously, I'm not asking for that. In a perfect world, expansion and growth, and if numbers wasn't a thing, I would love to have 2 sergeants. And ultimately, that's something I want to work for down the road. But right now, I'd like to just initiate it, reevaluate the cost, make sure that all my stats and figures are adding up, and then see about maybe a second one. But right now, it's not an additional manpower issue, it's just the additional cost of the salary bump, if you will. And that's where we're at with that. That's the first issue.
So, Chief, quick question. So those annual increases are just income only, correct?
Well,
Not OP&F?
the OP&F, we pay 19.25% on everyone's hourly wage, so that figure would still be proportionate. It would be per that amount, so it would be a slight, according to Taylor, would be a slight increase, but it wouldn't be any additional increase that's noticeable. It would still be the same percentage.
Sure.
It wouldn't be any higher percentage.
Yeah, I just mean these particular numbers here.
Yeah, this is just
straight
hourly
income.
wage. Yep.
All right, and then there's no, so we're not increasing staffing ordinance,
Nope.
We're just gonna be changing to add a position.
Just making one of the 9 police officers a sergeant. So essentially, it would be 8 officers, 1 sergeant, 1 chief.
We had sergeant before, didn't we?
We
We did, but that position's been eliminated by you, the council, last year. And it would be just simply negotiating with the current bargaining unit. They would be bargaining unit positions, it wouldn't be an administrative position. So therefore, it would just be a matter of negotiating essentially pay, because everything else, I think, that he's already receiving, the officer is now, whomever it may be. And my recommendation, which goes along with the Department of Justice standards, is 6-8-10. And that's on the low end, but
I don't have a problem with it. Do you guys?
I do not.
No, good.
Bring it forward to full count level? We get finance?
Well, it should go to finance, but also based upon testing. I think we got to, so if we did an ordinance to remove that position, I think we have to have an ordinance
Yeah.
to
Right.
put it back
Put it back
on,
in.
put it back on the table, yeah.
And that's why I elected to go with one right now, to let you guys see how it works out and plays out, and that everything I'm saying holds true.
Now, he's gonna be an active sergeant as far as
Well,
patrol, or?
He wouldn't be an acting sergeant, he would be a sergeant, but he would have a year's probationary, he'd be a probationary sergeant for a year.
He'd be on patrol too.
So what I'm saying,
Oh,
when
yeah.
I say active, I mean.
No, like
In the car.
I read,
Yeah.
he would continue to be in uniform, handling calls, he would just have these additional responsibilities. In addition, that's why
That's,
the
that's
additional,
why the additional pay.
the additional pay comes with the additional responsibility and additional liability.
So, yeah, so when I say active, I mean active. in-
Oh, yeah,
Not-
his job duties wouldn't change, other than he would have additional responsibilities.
He's not gonna sit in a chair.
Right,
No.
okay, don't, yeah.
All right,
Okay.
And so, once we, formalize that on the staffing ordinance for the police department, how long do we have, how far out do you have to schedule your civil service exam in order for, cause we're gonna have to probably fill that within a time frame, I'm assuming.
yeah,
Once we-
I mean, once all that gets done, I would like to do it, I mean, as soon as possible.
Okay.
There's no hurry, but like, if that would go through and it would be done, we'll say in August, then I'd probably like to get with the Civil Service Board immediately, if not prior to, schedule it up, so September, October, you know?
I just wanna make sure, our time frame is set up, so, okay.
Yes, I think it would be so even if we pass the ordinance, it would be the next available civil service.
Are we paying for the civil service exam?
We
No.
haven't been.
We charge a $20 fee, which covers most of it.
I think it covers the test, so.
Yeah.
Most of it, yeah, I think it's slightly above that now, but.
suggested that.
As long as it wasn't an additional
Oh, sure,
fee, I was
you're
gonna
gonna-
say combine it with the fire
I
department.
actually did.
If it doesn't matter,
Do you remember that?
I haven't,
we're good.
unless somebody opposed it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All right. You guys ready to move on?
Yeah, once we figure out a water situation, we'll.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of segues into my next section. So, I'm proposing, obviously, my job, I feel like my due diligence as a police chief and a department head is to find more effective, cost-saving, and efficient ways to run the department, and with being mindful of the city. This one is somewhat difficult in the sense that I'm asking for the if you guys elect to go with my proposal, it would be eliminating a position. And I know that that's never a good thing in certain areas. So that's why you guys get paid the big bucks to make the tough decisions, but I feel that I'm negligent if I don't bring it to your attention.
Okay.
So I'm proposing that we eliminate the mayor's court position and make the current part-time NPD clerk into a full-time position. All responsibilities of the mayor's court clerk will be taken on by the NPD clerk. The two reasons for this proposed idea are, first, it would ultimately be a cost-saving measure. The second is the most important reason for the change is efficiency and accuracy. The current NPD clerk is intimately familiar with all NPD cases. Over 90% of cases heard in mayor's court are NPD cases. This would more effectively utilize our resources due to the NPD clerk already being familiar with all cases. The NPD clerk already has copies of all the criminal charges, traffic tickets, citations, and parking tickets, and has a responsibility of tracking those cases until they're adjudicated already. There would be an additional responsibility of completing the mayor's court paperwork, filing operator's license blocks with the B&B. The NPD clerk would be directly under my supervision as opposed to working without direct supervision, and as it is now, this would increase accountability for every hour of the workday to maximize efficiency and accountability. It would allow the officers to continue to give the NPD clerk all the charges and tickets as opposed to sliding them under the door where there's opportunities to get lost. Officers would know the exact hours of when the NPD clerk works as opposed to the current system that we have in place now. Officers would, which would add to efficiency, officers would know the exact hours of when the NPD clerk, approximately half the people that come into town hall already come to the police department attempting to pay for the citation or ticket, so it would be convenient for the public. The NPD clerk is much more conveniently located in town hall as opposed to being in a small office in the back of council chambers, and has already established phone number with the public to answer calls. The MPD clerk works very well with the auditor, and his staff is accepting of the auditor's policy and procedures in dealing with the money from the mayor's court. It would eliminate all the calls from the public that MPD and Hocking College dispatchers handle daily with questions for the mayor's court clerk. It would simply be answered by the police clerk. The MPD clerk is well organized, professional, and understands the concept of being a team to better serve the public. It is my opinion that the move would be another big step for the city of Nelsonville, strengthening our team, providing better service to the community, and being physically more responsible. I did some facts, some figures, money figures. Currently, the MPD clerk is at $12.24 per hour. At 32 hours, that's roughly $20,367 per year. If the MPD per clerk would be moved up to, and I just put a random number out there, $17.50. Well, it's not a random number. It's in conjunction with other similar people that takes in money at the auditor's office that works in the water and sewer department. So I put that figure in there and plugged it in. Times 40, that's $36,400 in a yearly income. The difference between the part-time and full-time clerk's yearly wages is as follows: $16,032.64. The current budget for a mayor's court clerk is $15 per year. If you transfer that money to pay the salary of the full-time clerk, the numbers would be as follows: literally $1,032.64 difference.
If the Nelsonville PD clerk goes full-time, though, well, we have to change the staffing ordinance anyway to add a sergeant position. We'd have to change it to full-time. Now, does that now make it where she does not pay an OP and F now, or she does?
She pays it to OPERS.
Okay, so if she goes full-time, then she would be OP and F then?
She would remain an OPERS, so
Yeah.
she'd fall into the same contract Becky and, well, everybody else.
Really? Okay.
So we have two different
But
contracts.
she's not considered an officer?
Correct. She's a civilian employee, so she would stay within our first retirement system.
She would roll up underneath the service contract, service workers contract with no problem, and then the only other one after is FD, so.
Okay, so then the next question I have is, how does the charter define that position? Is that a position that is defined by the charter?
Are you talking about the mayor's court, or are you
Mayor's
talking
court,
about?
mayor's court.
That I believe, it is. I'm not overly familiar with it. I created the definition of the police department clerk.
Right.
So I'm sure that it is. I haven't looked at that to see exactly how it's defined.
Because if it's in the charter and it's required position by charter, I don't know if we
think it
can
is.
abolish it. You know, that's what
We have to
I don't
check
wanna
that
get
out.
into.
It is in there.
I think it is.
Yeah, it's definitely in there, responsible to the mayor, and it doesn't specify time, you know, as far as the amount of hours. All we have is what we budget for, which,
No, I don't mean so much that, but just the
Abolish the
position. If
position.
you've got the position in the charter, does it have to be, similar to a staffing ordinance? If you have a staffing ordinance and it's not, you don't have all the positions fulfilled, is it something that needs to be filled? Is the question I would want to know, because then if you cannot, if you just decide not to fill it, or, combine it with another position that's not, listed in the charter, under those rules, then
Run into a problem.
I don't want, yeah, that's what I'm wondering, I don't know if we would or not, so,
Yeah, would you have to change the charter, I guess?
maybe, if it says that it needs to be filled, if the charter would mandate that position being filled. Can we have, I know Jonathan is in the room right now, possibly toss that at him and see what he says.
And part of my reason with bringing this up now was because ultimately, whomever you guys select as the new city attorney, it would be a real good time for them to have the opportunity. If in fact you are in favor of this transition, then that would be a good time to bring them on board or get an opinion of them. So that's why I kind of brought it up now.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Does the PD clerk, does she get benefits right now?
No.
So she would also then become benefits,
Eligible, but
Eligible,
she will
but-
not need them.
oh, she won't need them?
She only currently gets OPERS, that's the only benefit she
Okay.
gets.
well, in time off, she gets PTO, and she also gets sick time and OPERS contributions. So the only thing that she would even be eligible for, which she's actually eligible for it now as a part-time, is insurance.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not gonna be, she doesn't opt for it now, and Currently, that's not in the future.
But a new clerk could in the future.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. Yep.
Well, I think we need a legal ruling on the charter first.
Yes. Absolutely.
So maybe we table this until we figure out the legal end of it.
Yeah, that's the only concern I have is that, you know, if it's listed in the charter, cause if it requires a charter amendment, then you're,
Yeah.
that's a situation where you have to actually form a committee to make changes to the charter and then actually have to put it on the ballot, so, for those changes, so. I just don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, nor do I. I just wanted to bring it forward.
No, I actually appreciate the suggestion of, you know, looking at ways to, you know, aggregate and, save. I appreciate that, so.
And that is all that I have from the police department.
Okay, well, we'll table the, yeah, if that's okay, if that's okay.
Does anybody else have any questions about those two issues, if you will?
I understand the sergeant said, so, yeah, we'll go now, we'll get an order for it, but the other one needs to be checked in on.
Okay.
By the charter, by law.
Yeah.
And so that's the only hesitation, is just the charter. I just wanna make sure from my notes.
That's the only thing that I can foresee that would be an issue, so if, as long as, and I don't have a problem if we find that answer out beforehand, and wanna make that amendment on the staffing ordinance at the same time, I'm actually not opposed to that, so, I mean, it's, I personally don't have an issue with it, the combining of the positions.
Cause it involves money, probably to run it back through finance.
So I supplied you with those papers. If you guys decide that you want additional copies, you can make them for additional councilmen if it comes to that position. Or I can email whomever, whatever you guys tell me to do. So.
Well, we have a finance meeting tonight, we could probably bring that
Okay.
up.
Chief, send them to all of them, email them. You got email copies of these?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Email them to everyone, so they have them.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anybody have anything else? Scott, you have anything?
No, sir.
Nothing out there? Okay, we will call this meeting to close at 5:31.
Okay. Thanks, Chief.